Hi friends, it's Pastor Veronica here with a special story for all of you. Today's story comes from one of our favorite family books. It's called the Bedtime book. It's a collection of fairy tales illustrated by Daniel Souci. And I'm probably saying his name wrong, but you know what? That's okay, because I'm sure you can see in the title for tonight's event, you can actually see the name there and get yourself a copy of this bedtime book. This one's been around for a while in our family, but it's definitely a favorite. This book contains a lot of fairy tales. In fact, so many fairy tales that for the next couple of times we do our story time, I'm going to be sharing a couple of different stories in there. And these are some really what we would call classic fairy tales. So they're stories that you might have heard before or are a little familiar with. I bet that you all have heard my first story, the story of the three bears. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to hold up the image close to the camera so you can see the really pretty illustrations. Let's hear our first story, the story of the three bears. Once upon a time, there were three bears who lived in a house in the woods. The baby bear was a little, small, wee bear. The mother was a middle-sized bear, and the father bear was a great, huge bear. Each had a pot for porridge, a little one for the little, small, wee bear, a middle-sized one for the middle bear, and a great one for the great, huge bear. Each had a chair to sit in, a little chair for the little, small, wee bear, a middle-sized chair for the middle bear, and a great chair for the great, huge bear. And each had a bed to sleep in, a little bed for the little, small, wee bear, a middle-sized bed for the middle bear, and a great bed for the great, huge bear. One day, after they had made the porridge for their breakfast and poured it into their porridge pots, they took a walk in the woods while the porridge was cooling. While they were walking, a little old woman came to their house. She was not a good, honest old woman. For seeing nobody in the house, she lifted the latch, opened the door, and went in. And she was very pleased when she saw the porridge on the table. If she had been a good little old woman, she would have waited till the bears came home, and then perhaps they would have asked her to breakfast. But she was an impudent, bad old woman, and she set about helping herself. First, she tasted the porridge of the great, huge bear. That was too hot for her. Then she tasted the porridge of the middle bear. That was too cold for her. And then she went to the porridge of the little, small, wee bear and tasted that. It was neither too hot nor too cold, but just right. And she liked it so well that she ate it all up. Then the little old woman sat down in the chair of the great, huge bear. But that was too hard for her. She sat down in the chair of the middle bear, but that was too soft for her. And then she sat down in the chair of the little, small, wee bear, and that was neither too hard nor too soft, but just right. So she sat in it till the bottom of the chair came out, and down she came, plump on the ground. Then the little old woman went upstairs into the bedchamber in which the three bears slept. First she lay down on the bed of the great huge bear, but that was too high at the head for her. Next she lay down upon the bed of the middle bear, but that was too high at the foot for her. Then she lay down upon the bed of the little, small, wee bear, and that was just right. So she covered herself up comfortably and lay there till she fell asleep. By this time, the three bears thought their porridge would be cool enough, so they came home to breakfast. See these pictures first before we continue on. There we see the bears in their home getting their porridge ready, and there we see the old woman in their house eating their things. She's broken some things as well.
Somebody has been at my porridge,
said the great huge bear in his great gruff voice when he saw his porridge pot. Somebody has been at my porridge, said the little bear in her middle voice when she saw her porridge pot. Then the little small wee bear looked at his porridge pot. Somebody has been in my porridge and has eaten it all up, he said in his little small wee voice. Now the three bears saw that someone had entered their house, and then they began to look about. Somebody has been sitting in my chair, said the great huge bear in his great rough, gruff voice. Somebody has been sitting in my chair, said the middle bear in her middle voice. Somebody has been sitting in my chair and has pushed the bottom out of it, said the little small wee bear in his little small wee voice. Then the three bears went upstairs into their bedchamber. Somebody has been lying in my bed, said the great huge bear in his great rough, gruff voice. Somebody has been lying in my bed, said the middle bear in her middle voice. And when the little small wee bear came to look at his bed, there was the little old woman. Somebody has been lying in my bed, and here she is, said the little small wee bear in his little small wee voice. The little old woman had heard in her sleep the great rough, gruff voice of the great huge bear, but she was so fast asleep that it was no more to her than the roaring of wind or the rumbling of thunder. And she had heard the middle voice of the middle bear, but it was only as if she had heard someone speaking in a dream. But when she heard the little small wee voice of the little small wee bear, it was so sharp and so shrill that it awakened her at once. She sat right up, and when she saw the three bears on one side of the bed, she tumbled out the other and ran to the window as fast as she could. The window was open, and out it the little old woman jumped. The little old woman disappeared into the woods, and the three bears never saw anything more of her. The end. And there is the last picture of the three bears coming into their room and finding the little old woman asleep in the bed. And there she goes, jumping out the window to run away. Well, I don't know about you all, but that is such a fun story. It's an even more fun story to act out. So if you have some other people in your house, try seeing if you can act out this fairy tale as well. Well, that's all I have for you today, but I hope that you'll join me again for more fairy tales out of the Bedtime book by Daniel Souci. Remember, sleep well, God loves you, and so do I. Good night, friends.